She came to the cemetery seeking silence, a place where a grieving mother could remember her son in peace. But that day, something felt different. At the edge of her son's grave, a young black waitress sat weeping, clutching a small child to her chest. Their tears fell on the same ground that held her son. Why were they there? What bound these strangers to her family's tragedy? She had no idea, but the answer would shatter everything she thought she knew. It had been 5 years since the accident, yet every visit to the cemetery still felt like the first. Eleanor, a woman of immense wealth and influence, had built empires, attended charity galas, and signed deals that reshaped industries, but none of it could fill the silence her son's absence left behind. To the world, she was a billionaire with everything. But to herself, she was simply a grieving mother who would have given it all away for one more day with him. Her son had been her pride, bright, compassionate, always eager to help others. The crash that took his life was sudden, cruel, and without warning. Ever since, Eleanor visited his grave religiously, each visit a fragile ritual of remembrance. She always brought white lilies, his favorite flower, and placed them carefully on the marble stone that bore his name. That morning seemed no different. The sky was overcast, a gentle wind rustling through the trees. But as she approached, she noticed something unusual. The flowers she had left the week before were disturbed. Fresh petals, different from hers, lay scattered. And then, voices. A woman's muffled sobs, a child's soft whimper. Her pace slowed, her heart uneasy. When she turned the corner and saw the young waitress kneeling by her son's grave, holding a little boy close, she froze. This wasn't just a passing visitor. The grief on the woman's face was raw, personal, almost as if she too had lost someone tied to this place. But why here? Why her son's grave? Eleanor's questions mounted, and with them, a storm of emotions she wasn't ready to face. Eleanor stood frozen, her heels pressed into the soft ground of the cemetery. Her first instinct was anger. This was sacred space, her son's resting place. And yet, as she watched the young woman kneeling in the dirt, clutching her child, her anger wavered. The waitress, her uniform still wrinkled from a morning shift, looked broken in a way Eleanor knew all too well. The boy beside her was no older than 5, his tiny hands gripping his mother's sleeve, his wide eyes glistening with confusion. The billionaire hesitated. She had seen this waitress before, at one of the city's upscale restaurants she frequented, always polite, always invisible, always part of the background in a world where Eleanor never needed to notice. But now, here, the woman's presence was undeniable. The waitress whispered something to her son, her voice trembling. Eleanor stepped closer, and the words reached her. "He was a good man. He helped us when no one else would." Eleanor's chest tightened. Who was she talking about? The child tugged at his mother's arm, pointing to the headstone. "Is he really gone, Mama?" His voice cracked, innocent, searching for an answer too heavy for a child to carry. The waitress broke down, pressing her face into her hands, her sobs echoing in the quiet cemetery. Eleanor's world tilted. How could this stranger speak of her son with such intimacy? He had been killed suddenly, with no chance to leave behind secrets, or so she thought. She felt an urge to demand answers, but her voice caught in her throat. Instead, she found herself silently observing, her heart pounding. And then the memories came flooding back. Her son, always compassionate, always slipping money to struggling students, always volunteering at community centers. Could it be that in those moments she dismissed as youthful idealism, he had built connections she never knew about? The waitress finally noticed Eleanor. Her face went pale, her body stiffening with both fear and guilt. She pulled the child closer, as if bracing for confrontation. The boy, however, looked curiously at Eleanor, innocent and unafraid. Their eyes met. 2 mothers, one with all the wealth in the world, but a heart hollowed by loss, the other burdened with poverty and survival, holding on to the only thing she had left, her child. And in that fleeting moment, Eleanor felt something she hadn't in years: uncertainty. The silence stretched, heavy and suffocating. Eleanor wanted to speak, to ask the questions clawing at her mind. But before she could, the boy placed a single daisy, crushed but bright, at her son's grave. "He told us to always bring flowers," the child whispered softly. Eleanor's breath carefully constructed world began to fracture. Her son, it seemed, had lived a life she barely knew, touching souls far beyond the circles of privilege she controlled. And now, standing before her, was living proof of a bond she had never been part of. But what exactly had tied them together? And why did the waitress look at Eleanor with such sorrow, as if the truth she carried could both heal and destroy in the same breath? The storm within Eleanor was only beginning. Eleanor's hands trembled as she finally stepped forward, her shadow falling across the waitress and her child. The young woman flinched, clutching her son tighter, as if preparing to be cast out. But Eleanor's voice broke the silence, not sharp, not commanding, but weak and unsteady. Why are you here?" she asked, her words almost a whisper. The waitress's lips quivered. She opened her mouth, closed it, then finally spoke. Her voice cracked with grief. "Because your son saved us." Eleanor froze. Saved them? Her heart pounded, every nerve on edge. The waitress wiped her tears, forcing herself to continue. "I was working double shifts, barely able to feed my boy. One night, I was cornered by men who wouldn't take no for an answer. I thought it was the end. And then, he appeared. Your son." Her voice rose, trembling with memory. "He pulled me out, he protected me, he gave me money to start fresh. He told me I was worth more than the world ever made me believe." Eleanor's knees weakened. Her son had never spoken of this, never told her the battles he fought quietly, the lives he touched in secret. The child looked up, his tiny voice piercing through the heavy air. "He was like a dad to me." Those words hit Eleanor like a thunderclap. She staggered, pressing a hand to her chest. Her son, a father figure? The waitress, sobbing harder now, buried her face in her child's hair. "He promised he'd always be there for us, but then he was gone, and I never got to say thank you." Eleanor's vision blurred with tears. For years she had grieved her son as hers alone, her pride, her legacy, her loss. But here, kneeling before her, was proof that he had belonged to others too. He had carried the weight of kindness far beyond her sheltered world. Her throat tightened as she whispered, "Why didn't he tell me?" The waitress looked up, her eyes glistening. "Because he didn't do it for praise. He did it because he saw us. He saw what the world refused to see." Eleanor's heart shattered. She realized in that crushing moment that she had not only lost her son, she had never fully known him, and the truth was both beautiful and unbearable. The cemetery was silent again, but Eleanor's heart was louder than it had ever been. She looked at the headstone, her son's name carved in stone, the years too short, the loss too heavy. Yet now, the silence felt different. It wasn't just grief, it was revelation. She knelt slowly, lowering herself beside the waitress and her child. For the first time in years, her knees touched the earth in humility. She reached out, not for the flowers, not for the stone, but for the trembling hand of the young mother. The waitress hesitated, shocked, then allowed their fingers to meet. Tears ran freely down Eleanor's face. "I thought I lost everything the day he died," she whispered, her voice breaking. "But maybe he left behind more than I ever knew." The little boy leaned closer, placing his tiny hand over theirs. In that fragile moment, 3 lives, divided by wealth and race, were bound together by one man's quiet kindness. Eleanor realized her son's true legacy wasn't in the business empire she had built, nor in the wealth she clung to. It was here, in the lives he had touched without recognition, without reward. A billionaire's fortune could not compare to the priceless gift of compassion her son had given. As the sun broke through the clouds, illuminating the grave, Eleanor made a silent promise. She would honor her son, not by mourning endlessly, but by continuing the work he had started, by seeing those the world tried to ignore, by giving where others took, by lifting where others pressed down. She stood, her voice steadier now, though still heavy with emotion. The world remembers power and wealth, but it forgets kindness. My son remembered, and so will I. And as she walked away, leaving the waitress and her child with flowers in their hands, one question echoed in her heart, one she hoped others would carry too. If we all saw each other the way he did, how different would this world be?